দর্শক আমন্ত্রণ আরটিভি নিয়মিত আলোচনা অনুষ্ঠান ফোর্থরাইটে আপনাদের সঙ্গে আছে আমি সৈয়দ আশিক রহমান। এই অনুষ্ঠানে আমরা কথা বলি বিভিন্ন সেক্টর বিশেষজ্ঞদের সাথে যারা বাংলাদেশ নিয়ে ভবিষ্যৎ পরিকল্পনা ও তাদের অভিজ্ঞতা নিয়ে আলোচনা করেন। আমাদের আজকের অতিথি মার্কিন সরকারের আন্তর্জাতিক সাহায্য সংস্থা USAIDর বিদায় মিশন প্রধান জানিনা জারুজেলস্কি। ওয়েলকাম মিস জানিনা, RTV স্টুডিও। Just tell me how you feeling. I believe you must remember that 3 years back you have been here.
Yes.
And now you are living Dhaka. Today actually we want to listen your experience. What are some of your most memorable moment during your tenure in Bangladesh?
Well, thank you, Ashik. Yeah, right now I'm feeling happy and sad. I'm very sad to be leaving Bangladesh because it's been a wonderful place and a wonderful experience, and I've had met so many terrific people and did so many interesting things. I'm happy though that working together with the Bangladeshi people, with the government, with the private sector and our partners, and of course the staff of our wonderful mission, we've been able to accomplish a lot, and I feel very good about that. I feel very proud of what we've been able to do together, and inspiring to see the tremendous progress that is being made in this country.
Right. In your findings, what are the disappointment as well?
There have been some sad moments, of course. It was painful and disappointing when our employee Jul Hasmanan was murdered. That was a horrible experience, and it's painful and disappointing that the killers have not been brought to justice still. It was painful and disappointing, the Holy Bakery attack, and the people who died there. Obviously the Rohingya crisis has been a very sad thing to watch. I've been down to the camps in Cox's
really
many times. Very, very. On the other hand, and even in the saddest things, there are hopeful signs. In the midst of tragedy, like with Jul Has's death and the Holy Bakery attack, people really came together and really supported each other. And I've been amazed at the resilience, both of our staff in the mission, but also of all of our partners and friends here in Bangladesh.
What is the most positive things?
Yes, and also, and similarly with the Rohingya crisis. It's been a horrible situation, but everyone has stepped up to the plate. Everybody has been working together. If
you notice how international community can do for Rohingya crisis?
Well, we are doing it. Of course, everybody needs to do more. Right now, I'm happy to say that the U.S. government is the single largest donor to the Rohingya crisis. We've given well over $100 million, far over $100 million, and we expect to give more. So to assist.
Do you think it is enough?
No, nothing is enough. I mean, the crisis is very large, and there's many different aspects of the crisis. And part of that, and I want to emphasize very much, is that we need to assist and support the host communities, not just the Rohingya themselves, because the Rohingya are. Their camps are in areas where there are a lot of poor people. And
how they're responding, the international community? What is your findings?
I've found that people are working together very closely in collaboration. There's a lot of information sharing and a lot of attempts to coordinate amongst the UN and the various donors with the government to make sure that the gaps are addressed, that the food is delivered, that the tarpaulins are there for shelter, and to try to make plans, particularly for the coming monsoon season. I think everybody's concerned about how the people in that camp.
Concerned. Could you talk a little bit about how Bangladesh has developed over the past few years?
Again, tremendous levels of progress in a lot of different areas. I mean, if you look back at where the country was in the 70s when independence was declared, where they are now, where Bangladesh we are now, it's incredibly impressive. Just even in the 4 years since I've been here, stunting was at 41%. It's now been cut to 36%. Still too high, but that's a big accomplishment. Over the past 20 years, we've cut maternal and infant mortality by well over 60%. We've got education enrollment at the primary grades at close to universal. and very good enrollment of girls, not just of boys. So that's a huge accomplishment. We've seen, obviously the GDP is growing very
especially
quickly.
Girls drop out from school, it reduced.
It did reduce. And so, you know, we're seeing lots of progress in lots of areas, and that is very encouraging. Obviously, there are challenges that remain.
Well, Ms. Janina, USAID working since 1971 in Bangladesh.
Right.
And no doubt had many success and also some disappointments. What inspired you to continue work in Bangladesh or advance for development in Bangladesh?
Well, what really inspires me more than anything else are the people of Bangladesh. And I would say most of all, actually the very poor people. It is always amazing and extraordinary to me, the resilience, the creativity, the hard work of some of the poorest people in this country. Everywhere I go there, and how warm and kind and hospitable they are, even if their conditions are poor. And so I'm always inspired every time I meet with them, talk to them, and the poorest people are some of the most inspiring because they struggle against great odds, but they have hope and they have aspirations for themselves and their children. And, you know, with a relatively modest amount of help, they can go so far.
Well, after that you visited more than 50 districts in Bangladesh. And what is the findings about the remote area, especially in the river banks, what is called in Bengali, in Chor area?
Yeah, I've been to Chors. Yeah,
you visited Chors?
Oh, yes.
What is the finding?
You know, people are very creative about using even those chore lands. Even if they flood, you know, during part of the year, people will grow crops on them during the time when they're not underwater. People will take livestock to the chores and graze them for a few months. People sometimes are living there temporarily. People are going back and forth in little boats. You know, and we've been actually helping some of our projects specifically focus on the chores.
In terms of food security,
yes,
what have been USAID, actually their greatest achievement, you think, for USAID?
We have been very successful in introducing appropriate local small-scale mechanization. So when you drive around in the back roads in rural areas of this country, almost never do you see people using an animal for their tractor. They have a machine.
Machine now.
And that's not true in India. In India, they'll be using the bullock. But
still they're behind.
They're behind, yes. Bangladesh is ahead.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so that mechanization is something we've focused on a lot, and also in particular in setting up sustainable systems so that going forward, you can have Bangladeshi small business people providing to Bangladeshi farmers, and the mechanization will continue. Another thing that has been super successful are our work with the Bangladesh Agricultural Research Institute and others on appropriate seeds. We're coming up with all kinds of new creative new seed varieties, some that are resistant to heat, some that are resistant to saltwater intrusion, some that are resistant to various kinds of insects like the fruit and shoot borer, and so they are more productive than the old seeds. They're more resistant to the various pests. And in many cases, too, they mean that you could have much more safe, nutritious, environmentally sound food because you don't need to dump a lot of pesticide on it, which of course is poisonous. So I think that the introduction of these seeds and testing them in small scale with farmers and getting the feedback of the farmers and also of people who consume the fruit and vegetables so that they can test that it tastes right, all of that has been a huge success.
Well, Janina, could you please talk about your experience working with Bangladesh and the situation politically developed?
This is an area of challenge, being very transparent. But I think one of the areas where we've had success, there's a couple of areas of success that I would like to emphasize. One is that we have been working a lot at the grassroots level with women and trying to get them more involved in the political process. And now that there is an order of the Bangladeshi government which requires a certain percentage of women to be in leadership roles on all the political parties, we have been training women to be able to step up and take those roles, and we've had very good cooperation from all the political parties on doing that. So I'm glad to say that we've been able to do that, and we've been able to do programs also at the local level where we get the various political parties who sometimes, as you know, are not in the best relationship with each other, to sit together and talk about what they can do together and how they can ensure that the process goes forward in a calm and non-violent way, which is in everybody's best interest.
Well, we'll talk more after a short break.
Okay.
দর্শক দেখছেন আরটিভি নিয়মিত আলোচনা অনুষ্ঠান ফোর্থরাইট। এই পর্যায়ে নিচ্ছে বিরতি, ফিরছি একটু পরে। সে পর্যন্ত আমাদের সাথেই থাকুন। দর্শক আবারও আমন্ত্রণ ফোর্থরাইট অনুষ্ঠানে। আজকে কথা বলছিলাম USAID বাংলাদেশের বিদায়ী মিশন প্রধান জানিনা জারুজালস্কির সঙ্গে। ওয়েলকাম অ্যাগেইন মিস জানিনা জারুজালস্কি at RTV studio. Well, Bangladesh is one of the most natural disaster prone countries in the world. Could you please talk about what USAID is doing in Bangladesh in terms of disaster preparedness and related humanitarian assistance?
Yeah, I would be happy to talk about that because that's one of our biggest areas of effort and has been for a long time. One of the things that we've done, and we've worked very much in partnership with the Ministry of Disaster Management on this, is creating multi-purpose cyclone shelters.
Well,
we've built, at this point, about 500 of them in Bangladesh, which house up to 500,000 people in a time of disaster. And I think, and they've been very well constructed, very carefully sited in terms of both the geography of the location and the location of people in order to have the maximum benefit. And of course, during times of normal times, they can be used as schools or community centers, things like that. But during disaster, they are a safe place for people to bring themselves, and usually have some place also to bring animals so that they can bring some of their livestock with them. And this is, I think, it's played a real role in the fact that in recent disasters, even though there have been problems and some people have lost their lives, the number of people losing their lives is much less than it was a few years ago. And so I feel that's a huge accomplishment and a huge benefit for the people of Bangladesh. We're also working right now on trying to create what some people call a BIMS, a Bangladesh Incident Management System, that will help in the management and coordination of all ministries whenever there's a disaster. And particularly, this would be useful in some non-typical disasters. As she mentioned, Bangladesh is very, very, unfortunately, very familiar with cyclones and floods, gets them a lot. But there are other kinds of disasters that can happen that are less common, particularly in urban areas. And so managing those kinds of incidents is a complex task, but we have a lot of experience in doing that, and we've helped other countries do that. And so we're working with Bangladesh on that.
Well, USAID is partnering with the government of Bangladesh.
Yes.
So how USAID is partnering and how individually USAID is working?
It depends exactly how we work. It depends on the particular project. But normally we have a counterpart ministry on any project. So for example, when we work on deforestation and biodiversity and wildlife issues, then we work with the Ministry of Environment and Forests. When we're working on trade facilitation, we work with the National Board of Revenue and the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Commerce. When we're working on labor issues, we work with the Ministry of Labor and the Ministry of Commerce. And then there are private sector partners too that we may be involved in, depending on the particular activity. NGOs, sometimes universities, think tanks.
Private sectors also.
And companies, yes, many companies.
Great. Yeah. Well, Janina, what have you done in regards to maternal and child health development in Bangladesh?
Well, happy to talk about that because that is one of the biggest areas that we work on.
It's the biggest area.
Yeah, it is. It's the single
and
biggest part of our
success in Bangladesh.
True. Yeah, it's the single biggest part of our budget is maternal and child health. And I'm very happy to say that we have made tremendous strides on both reducing maternal mortality by well over 60%, 60, and the same for infant and child mortality, well over 60%. And we've done a lot of very innovative things that I particularly like to emphasize and say are low cost. There are things that are not high tech, they're not expensive, like there's a so-called kangaroo method when a newborn,
exactly.
you know, you put skin-to-skin contact, put the baby with the mother right away, and don't put them on some metal container.
Exactly.
And immediately that has a tremendous effect on child survival. It's a simple thing, it's easy, but people don't always know that. Also, emphasis on proper nutrition and exclusive breastfeeding in the first 6 months of life. If you exclusively breastfeed and you don't give any formula, the chances of healthy child greatly increase. And so sometimes people don't know that. So a little bit of training or an explanation about some of these simple things can make a world of difference.
One supplementary question is that AID also involved in Rohingya camp and their maternal health and child health, and what you'll tell about it and how does you work with them?
We're certainly going to work in partnership with many others because this is a big issue and no one organization or entity can take care of it by themselves. So we're working very closely with the UN, with the government of Bangladesh, with a lot of different NGOs, and particularly with the World Food Program and UNICEF more than anything else. The donors amongst ourselves, we've kind of divvied up areas, and so the particular focus of USAID is on food. We are, contributing a very large percentage of all the food that is going to the Rohingya, just basic daily feeding, and also special nutrition interventions for those that are severely malnourished, particularly children. Our focus is on very, very malnourished Particularly children. We've also had requests, which we have fulfilled from the Bangladesh Ministry of Health, to supply some key commodities. So for example, we were asked to supply 3 million sachets of oral rehydration salts in order to ensure that people had that and didn't die of diarrheal disease. So we supplied that. We delivered that a couple of months ago to the ministry for the Rohingya camps. We also were requested to supply the Depo-Provera contraceptive, and we supplied also a lot of that as well. In 2 different installments. And so we're listening to the government of Bangladesh what is needed. We're also doing, of course, in partnership with others, our own assessments of where we can fill gaps or where there's issues. We just had, in fact, an expert visitor just last week to go down and look at the disaster preparedness, trying to think in advance of what kind of problems could occur and what would be needed to address those problems. And so we've identified a couple of gaps. In general, people are doing the best they can, but we identified a couple of gaps where we can supply commodities that are going to be needed, and we can, give some grants of probably $1 million each to several NGOs. So we're going to do that. We're moving forward with that.
Well, let's talk about other issues. Given that the Prime Minister, opposition leader, and the Speaker of Parliament are all women, in your opinion, what does it say about the women empowerment in Bangladesh comparing other countries?
Well, given the 3 very prominent ladies that you mentioned, which is true, that's quite extraordinary. I don't know of any other country where that's true. So that's quite a feather in Bangladesh's hat. Bangladesh has reason to be proud of that, and certainly that sends an interesting, positive message to, I think, young girls in this country about their potential and what they could become. At the same time, we do have to work on making sure that women and girls are participating at all levels of the system.
All levels of the
system. And, so that we see a better representation within the regular members of Parliament. Right now, the percentage of women is rather low. It could be a lot higher. We'd like to see that. women mayors. We've got some very impressive ones, such as Mrs. Ivy in Narayanganj. But we'd like to see some more women mayors, more women in all areas of the hierarchy and the administration.
Great. Well, let's talk about gender equity. How does USAID ensure gender equity in its different program?
Well, gender equity is a major focus for us, and so all of our implementing partners are required to have actual plans for implementing gender equity in their programs. They are also expected to implement gender equity and proper policies within their own staff and the way they administer the project. And we do look to see about their staffing, about their policies within the project. Because we think that influences how the project is implemented. And each implementing partner is required to report on how many women and men are participating in the project and receiving benefits, receiving training and other benefits. And many projects have a particular component that requires them to involve women. For example, our agriculture projects, we have a particular emphasis that they should involve women, that they should teach women farming techniques and also marketing techniques so that they can participate fully in agriculture and they can assist their husbands and their families with income.
Well, Ms. Janina, what message or piece of advice would you give to your successor?
I would say come here with an open mind and an open heart, and you will find that people here are lovely and warm, and they want to improve themselves, improve the lives of their families and their communities. So, get out and meet them and talk to them, hear their stories and their advice, and make sure you get out of Dhaka and travel the country.
Great findings. Well, Ms. Janina, we are almost end of this program. Any final thought you want to share with our viewers?
Well, I just want to say that I've been here 4.5 years. It feels like it's flown by, like I've been here maybe 2 years. It was gone so quickly. I've worked all over the world. I've worked in the former Soviet Union, in the Middle East, in the South America, all over the world. And I can honestly say that this has been the most interesting and personally rewarding assignment I've ever had.
It's really makes us happy that you like Bangladesh.
I do.
And like Bangladeshi people.
Yeah.
Well, Ms. Janina, thank you very much for being with us, for being in our studio. And we wish you all success in coming days and hope to see you again in Bangladesh.
I hope so too. I just want to say onek dhonnobad and dekha hobe.
ধন্যবাদ। দর্শক, মার্কিন সরকারের সবচেয়ে বড় সাহায্য সংস্থা USAID বাংলাদেশের বিভিন্ন উন্নয়নমূলক কাজের অংশীদার। বিগত কয়েক দশকে সংস্থাটি বাংলাদেশের শিক্ষা স্বাস্থ্য খাতের উন্নয়ন সহ বাল্যবিবাহ প্রতিরোধে কাজ করছে। এছাড়া সাম্প্রতিক রোহিঙ্গা সমস্যার সমাধানে মার্কিন সহায়তা আমাদেরকে আশান্বিত করে। জানিনা জারুজালস্কির প্রায় 5 বছরের অভিজ্ঞতা ভবিষ্যতে বাংলাদেশকে উচ্চ মাত্রায় আসীন করবে বলেই আমাদের বিশ্বাস। এই প্রত্যাশায় শেষ করছি ফোর্থরাইট। এতক্ষণ আমাদের সাথে থাকার জন্য ধন্যবাদ সবাইকে।